In the last 155 years of Juneteenth existing, baby, this one right here is going to be one for the books. With everything that has happened, this huge outcry of we are supporting Black businesses more than what we were already supporting before. So this is major, and it's time for us to stop celebrating another person's Independence Day. This is our independence. On June 19th, 1865, General Gordon Granger would make his way to Galveston County bearing good news, not to be misconstrued with a good person. He made the slaves aware at that time in Texas that they were now free. The Civil War had been lost and it was time to start a new chapter. Unbeknownst to them, January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln had already signed the Emancipation Proclamation giving them their freedom. However, then, much like now, Black folks are too often the last ones to get this information. Now, as I mentioned, neither Gordon Granger or Abraham Lincoln are saviors. The Emancipation Proclamation kind of had to be passed. You had Black folks refusing slavery. Time was up. There had to be an acceptance that slavery was no longer an effective form of servitude. And Gordon Granger himself fought in the Civil War. Now remember, the North and the South were arguing because the wealth that the South was seeing due to slavery. So the North was basically saying, if we can't get in on it, then it needs to be abolished altogether. They argued, bickered, fought. The result was it was a loss. The North won. Then Gordon Granger delivered good news. That's it. It was not because the North absolutely loved Black people. So neither of these two individuals are heroes. The true heroes of this are Black people, is us. For this Juneteenth, make sure you turn up. You spend some time with some family. You spend time with maybe even just self. If this is your first Juneteenth celebrating, congratulations. Sometimes it takes some longer than others. That's totally fine. You on board now. Hopefully this is one Juneteenth of many that you'll celebrate. Now I'm going to end off this video with a good, resourceful, informational video that one of our brothers put together about Juneteenth that I think is phenomenal. But before then, could we please just take a moment of silence for all of those men, women, and children who have lost their lives to the system of racism, white supremacy. They are now our ancestors and deserve our ashes too. Hope y'all enjoy this video. It is the Goddess Neath Night. This is the Blackest Truth. Have a good Juneteenth and turn up, cause I'ma turn up. I'ma turn up on this Juneteenth. Bye.
Sometime in the water. Sometime in the water. Sweet Jesus, He carried me. Sometime in the water. Sometime in the water.
The Emancipation Proclamation was signed by President Abraham Lincoln on January 1st, 1863, officially declaring the freedom of over 3.5 million black slaves. However, news didn't make it as far as people would have originally thought. The American Civil War began on April 12, 1861, and 4 long years later, the Confederacy was defeated at the total cost of 620,000 Union and Confederate soldiers as of June 2, 1865. By the time the war ended in 1865, about 180,000 black men had served as soldiers in the U.S. Army. This was about 10% of the total Union fighting force. About 90,000 were former or contraband slaves from the Confederate States. About half of the rest were from the loyal border states, and the rest were free blacks from the North. 40,000 black soldiers died in the war, 10,000 in battle, and 30,000 from illness or infection. During the war, slavery in Texas was relatively unaffected because the state experienced no large-scale fighting or significant presence of Union troops. Many slave owners from outside the Lone Star State viewed it as a safe haven and moved there with their slaves. After the war came to a close in the spring of 1865, with General Granger's arrival in Galveston to announce that the Civil War had ended, signaled freedom for Texas's 250,000 slaves, they had no idea that their freedom had been secured by the government. On June 19, 1865, General Granger made the following announcement, which read as follows. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. Civil War period, they transformed June 19th from a day of unheeded military orders into their own annual rite, Juneteenth, beginning 1 year later in 1866.